If you've ever played a PvP game mode on the Hive, I can almost guarantee that you've shot a bow, tossed a snowball, or thrown an enderpearl. All of these are called projectiles, and they're something that's launched from your character in-game. If you've used these projectiles on other servers, or even in just vanilla Minecraft, you may have noticed that the projectiles work a little bit differently on the Hive. For almost as long as I can remember, there's been debate and discussion about the Hive's projectiles, and in this video, I'm going to give my thoughts on them. I'll talk about what makes Hive projectiles different from elsewhere, discuss how they could be changed to make more sense, and give my opinions on what I think should be done with them. Be sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe if you're a fan of my content, and enjoy. So, I honestly meant to make this video about 3 or 4 months ago. However, I was lazy. That's the entire reason why I hadn't made it yet. Now, I'm sure that many of you watching this video might not even know just how different Hive projectiles are from vanilla projectiles. Recently, however, I did some testing to show you just how big that difference is. For snowballs, basically the furthest distance that you can throw them on the Hive is 44 blocks. I tested this multiple times with multiple different methods like running and jumping, and that's basically the maximum distance I could squeeze out of it. On vanilla Minecraft though, I could get a distance of 55 blocks just by throwing it while standing still. That's an increase of about 20%. Now, for bows on the Hive, the furthest that I could get it to go was about 51 blocks. Once again, I tried multiple different methods to try and get it to go the furthest, but 51 blocks seems to be about the limit on the Hive. Obviously, a contributing factor to this is the fact that when shot at a certain angle, Hive arrows curve up for a little bit and then lose all of their forward momentum. This has been a known thing on the Hive for a while, and it's probably a bug, but it seems to be the limiting factor in how far arrows can go. On vanilla Minecraft, however, arrows quite literally go out of render distance. Yes, I probably could have counted the actual distance that it traveled, but I didn't see it worth my time just because of how different Hive and vanilla are here. Now finally, let's move on to enderpearls. The maximum distance I was able to get was about 35 blocks. On vanilla Minecraft, I was easily able to double that with the same pearl throw. One of the things that I've consistently heard from a lot of people on the Hive is that you just can't throw enderpearls far enough, and I think this perfectly demonstrates it. I'll talk about this more later in the video, however. Now obviously, people haven't been silent about this, and on February 24th, one of the owners of the server, Ajax, made a post on the Hive forums asking about people's opinions on projectiles on the Hive. Specifically, it asked if people would rather see projectiles on the Hive changed to how they work in vanilla Minecraft. This obviously created some discussion in the comments section and in other places on the Hive. On the poll in the forums post, 74% of people said yes, they would like to see vanilla projectiles on the Hive. The general reasoning by most people for this was that they would just like them to work the same across every server and every world that they play on. It's not very intuitive to new players who come to the server and don't know how the projectiles work at all. However, not everyone agreed. Here's what DZ had to say. Hive forums community single-handedly ruined Skywars mechanics, 2021 colorized. What we can deduce from this is that some people don't want to relearn vanilla projectiles since they spend most of their time on the Hive with Hive projectiles. Now, I should say that the discussion on this forums post was mainly about motion and movement of projectiles, and not really about their place in games or how they affect gameplay. Obviously though, people still have opinions about that, and to talk about it, I called up my friends Evident and MJ Owns You. Here's what Evident had to say.
I think in Skywars they're fine because they're not like thrown at you. Like I feel like why everyone hates them is because in Treasure Wars you can literally like breathe and you can get snowballs. Like It's so easy. And like the bows in Skywars, there isn't like a bunch of projectiles, so you have to like use them when it matters. But in like Treasure Wars, I think it's more of a problem than in Skywars, because in Treasure Wars they're just so abundant. That's another thing. Like in Skywars, arrows aren't OP because everyone has like good gear, but in Treasure Wars, a no armor like dies in one shot. Like, you know.
Thoughts on pearls?
Yeah, I don't think there's much wrong with pearls. I'm not gonna lie. I think they're fine.
All right. To summarize, Evident thinks that Hive projectiles are good in the state that they're in currently, but could probably be balanced a little bit more. Next up, I talked to MJ Owns You, who is kind of known as the king of projectiles on the Hive.
In my opinion, projectiles are in a great place. Take a game like Treasure Wars, for instance. There's virtually no RNG in the game, meaning that game sense plays a huge role. Let's say you get snowballed off. You could enderpearl to a nearby island. Or what if you're getting bow spammed? You could work on slowly closing the gap between you and your enemy so that the bow becomes less usable. In conclusion, I think the Hive's projectile mechanics are unique and make all the different game modes special.
Basically, MJ also thinks that projectiles are in a perfect state on the Hive at the moment. They're relatively skill-based currently, and there isn't really anything that needs to be changed about them. But let's say that projectiles on the server were changed to be like their vanilla counterparts. What would that look like? Well, something that you need to understand is that like projectiles on the Hive, knockback isn't the same as vanilla either. The Hive's knockback is a lot more vertical, which leads to some of the crazy combos you see, whereas on vanilla, you kind of just bounce back. Most of you will probably know that projectiles, usually snowballs, are commonly used to start combos on the Hive, and you would most likely be able to start snowball combos easier if their projectile motion was changed to be in line with vanilla. I'm no gameplay designer, and I basically failed physics in high school, so take my word for this or not, but if a snowball in vanilla is going further than it is on the Hive, it's going to have more momentum and as a result speed, which means that in theory it should be easier to start snowball combos. Your snowball will just hit them faster and they'll have less time to react, making it more effective. Also, if the snowballs straight up go further, you'd be able to hit better cross maps and trick shots. You can decide for yourself whether you think you would like these changes or not, but I personally think that they're pretty okay. Maybe if anything, snowballs could become more rare in Skywars and survival games and maybe made more expensive in Treasure Wars, but I think changing the mechanics so that they work like they do in vanilla would make the game more fun and skill-based. Next up, however, let's move on to bows and what they would be like if they had vanilla mechanics on the Hive. Like I said earlier, if you shoot a vanilla bow, the arrow basically leaves the Earth's atmosphere. With the arrow having more momentum and speed, the same thing that happened with snowball combos would also happen with bows. They would likely become easier just because the projectile was traveling faster and your opponent would have less time to react. Also, like snowballs, long shots and cross-map shots would likely become quite a lot easier because your arrow will literally just go further. However, there are also a couple of issues that I've thought about if the bow and arrow were to be changed. The first one that I think a lot of the Hive community agrees with me on is that bows are already kind of overpowered to begin with. To a person that has no armor on, Hive bows do 5 hearts of damage. If you make the bow shoot faster and further, which in my eyes is a buff, I feel like it would just become even more broken. Another reason why I think Hive bows probably wouldn't be given vanilla properties is because there's probably a cap on projectile distance on the Hive for a reason. This is sort of just speculation on my end, but I feel like it would be more work on the server if people could shoot arrows out of their render distance, since the server still has to render them in elsewhere. I mean, you guys saw in the testing clips earlier that in vanilla Minecraft arrows go out of your render distance, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Hive's opposed to adding vanilla bow physics on the server just for that reason. Either way, let's move on to the final projectile on the Hive, enderpearls. I feel like the general community consensus on enderpearls is that they'd like them to go further. Anyone that I see playing the Hive for the first time always misjudges their first few pearl throws, and they usually end up falling off the map as a result. They're just so different from pearls on almost every other server or version of Minecraft, and I don't really understand why they're so different on the Hive. Pearls in general on the Hive are kind of weird anyways. They place your character up a block from wherever your pearl lands. This can be used to break the game in varying ways, and again, I don't really have any indication as to why they're like this. Regardless, if pearl physics on the Hive were changed to be vanilla, there's not really too much about it that would change the game fundamentally other than your pearl literally going further than it did before. In my opinion, however, I think changing pearl physics on the Hive to how they work in vanilla Minecraft would be a really good change. It just would make more sense overall and would make the game more enjoyable and playable. As for bows and snowballs, honestly, I'm kind of indifferent whether they change or not. Obviously, changing them to how they work in vanilla would make more sense to players who play across multiple servers and worlds, but I'm also used to the current physics of how they work, and I'm not sure if I'd like to have to learn new physics. What do you think? Let me know in a comment on this video. I'm really excited to hear what all of you have to say about it. With all of that being said, however, I think that's going to be it for this one, and I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please consider leaving a like on this video and subscribing if you want to see more like this. We're getting really close to 50,000 subscribers, so any new sub helps a lot. Also, before we end, I'd like to give a big shout out to all of my YouTube channel members. They support me for $4.99 a month, and they get some cool perks like getting their names displayed at the end of every video that I post. If you'd like to become a channel member or check out what other perks they get, you can do so by clicking the join button next to the subscribe button or by clicking the members link in the description. Once again, thank you all for your support, and thank you for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.